no regrets, no confusion. There'll be no pollution. I'm so thankful I've decided to change my ways.
Welcome back to the Leaving Eden podcast. This is a bonus episode of the Leaving Eden podcast. Sadie is not with you today. My name is Gabriel Hakohen, as always. And today I've brought with me my good friend, sexologist, therapist, Liat Fruman. You remember her from when we did our Fundy Sex Advice episode back in February. We had such a good time and we just had to bring her back on. How are you doing today, Liat?
I'm doing good. They found Alicia Navarro, which I'm very excited about. I don't know if any of you are true crime people, but that's my good news for the week. So thanks for having me.
Don't really follow true crime outside of the stuff in this podcast, but I'm happy that for you that's happened. As I said earlier, Sadie is not with us because it is the summer and she is having a little break because she has a yet to be disclosed positive, excellent life change that is happening for her that we are very happy about at this moment. And we're just giving her a little bit of extra time to let that happen. I'll let her make that announcement when we are back next week, because we will be back next week with the Alberto Rivera Part 2 episode. But I figured that I didn't want to leave you guys hanging for 2 weeks straight of no content. So brought back a good friend. Today, Liat, what are we talking about?
We're talking about the Jewish matchmaking show on Netflix. I know we're a little late to the party on that one.
Yes, I'm really excited for this one because as soon as the show dropped, we had people in the Facebook group being like, Gavi, what do you think about this? Gavi, what do you think about this? Sadie and I talked about do we want to talk about this? Because it's like a religion thing and it's also a dating thing. And it's also like, it could be an interesting look into but we just couldn't really justify spending a whole episode on it. But it's nice to have a little bonus episode with it. And it's nice to have somebody like yourself who is a actual sexologist, who is actually
I thought you were going to say a Jew.
Well, you're also Jewish. We're both Jewish, and so we can talk about this. And on this show to talk about this, and this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for this. I have a question for you. I don't know if I've ever asked you this question before. So your family, you're Jewish. Your family came from Eastern Europe, right? From Russia,
Yes.
Ukraine, Lithuania, that area?
Yeah, so my family always said to watch Fiddler on the Roof, and that's pretty much our story.
Mine too, which is a lot of fun, except for when they get kicked out. I didn't like the...
We might be related, go far back enough, but...
I mean, it's entirely possible. We might be distant cousins. We're all related. That's why there's the Tay-Sachs situation. Are you a Tay-Sachs? I'm not a Tay-Sachs carrier. Are you a Tay-Sachs carrier?
I don't even know.
Well, I'm not. Anyway, my great-grandparents had an arranged marriage. Did anyone in your family have an arranged marriage?
Not to my knowledge.
I'm sure that...
I mean, going far back enough, I'm sure, yeah, but no one in my immediate, last couple of generations that I would know about.
Interesting. Okay, because the concept of having a matchmaker, and they've had, and people do love dating shows, people do love dating TV shows, but the concept of having a matchmaker is very much a thing in certain Jewish communities, and it's also a thing in certain Indian communities. And so I guess Netflix has seen fit to make TV shows about matchmakers in those communities. It's nice to see some Jewish representation. And I went into it with a little bit of reticence. I'm like, how are they going to do this? Is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad?
I didn't even watch it until now because I know how the Jews are usually portrayed by the media, especially Netflix in recent history. So I really didn't want to see anything that was going to make us look bad.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised. I thought, some individual Jews didn't look great, but Jews as a whole...
No, but the matchmaker herself, Eliza, she seemed like... I really liked her.
She was great. She was great. No, I loved her.
I liked about this show that there was a good combination of Jews who were more secular, and there were Jews on there who were very much religious, very observant, and there was a good mix of the spectrum between those two things.
I loved how Eliza like asked for them to get really specific in like what they did and did not observe, because that really is how Jews are. You really can't define us by, you know, what synagogue denomination you grew up in. There's so many different like levels to it.
I mean, it's very interesting because on one hand, it's a bit easier in that for us, it's like, are you like, how observant are you? And you can be like, okay, well, I'm kosher in the house, but like when I go out to eat, it's whatever. Or you can, and you can have something like, I want somebody that matches that general level of religious observance. Or you can be like, I want somebody who like will turn their phone off completely on Shabbat and not be on their phone and just like observe it in this way or that way or the other way. And you can say, this is the person who I have for you. We found somebody at a similar level, but it's not the same as for a lot of Christians.
Mhm.
And I know this from talking to Sadie, that if the person isn't the right brand of Bible believing Christian, if you're like a fundamentalist, then you're going to have a bit of trouble there, and you're not going to necessarily be able to be a good match for each other in that way. And there are so many different like permutations of that. Whereas us, it's more of just like, I don't want to say like a one-dimensional spectrum.
But it's like, it's a Jew, it's a Jew. It's, you know, for
Yeah.
most of us anyway, think that way.
Yeah. So this show, I think there were 8 or 10 episodes, and in 8 episodes, and in each episode there were a few single people that Eliza found to and to try to find matches for these people, and they ranged from Danny in the first episode is she I mean she's very secular. I mean she lives in Miami, she likes living in Miami, she likes that lifestyle, but she was looking for somebody who matched generally her level of religiousness. We also had somebody who was from an observant Orthodox woman who was looking for a husband from that community. And I thought that they were both portrayed very well, in that they were unapologetic in what they were looking for. And I thought that was nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think all the women came off pretty okay in my eyes.
Yes. And not all of the men did.
No, no, they did not.
No.
Do you want to talk about Ori?
The man that we're talking about now, his name is Ori Basley. He is an Israeli American who lives in Los Angeles. He lives at his parents' house, and he works for his mother's event planning company. And he does wedding planning.
I took some notes and I just wrote down Ori, and then I wrote in quotes, "My mom is the best person," and then I drew an arrow next to it and wrote, "Oh no." Very, very familiar to me. There seems to be a thing in Israel with some type of Israeli men where they are like very into their mom, and like I respect it. It gets to be a point where it's like enough. Can I share a personal story?
Yeah, if you want to. I mean, I'm just gonna say that like the mama's boy is definitely a Jewish stereotype that you do see, and it was very funny to see it so like encapsulated. So like, but share your story.
Oh God! If it's too embarrassing, you'll edit it out.
Yes,
But
if it's too embarrassing, that
you'll tell me what you think after.
Yeah.
So when I was first living in Israel, I dated this guy for a while who was kind of like Ori. As I said, every guy I dated there was kind of like him. But he would go to his parents' house every Friday night for Shabbat dinner, as Israelis do. And one day, it was Friday afternoon, and we were sitting on his couch making out. I'm literally like, I'm straddling him. You know, we're kissing, we're making out. His mom calls. He literally like picks me up and tosses me to the side and jumps up and is like, "I gotta go," and just like left because his mom called.
That's really funny.
I know.
I mean, I guess that's a little sweet, but also that's a little weird. Like,
it's weird.
yeah.
You could do it in a more like, you know, "I'm so sorry, I gotta go." Like
He's just like, "I gotta go," like, and he just runs off.
Like literally threw me off him.
So Eliza comes to Ori's house, to Ori's parents' house where Ori lives, and he like sits and she like sits down with Ori and is like, okay, tell me what it is that you're looking for. And Ori has like the most like incredibly specific
Narrow.
thing that he's so like, and I'll put Ori isn't a bad looking guy. He isn't an ugly
Oh no,
man
he was
by any means.
cute. He was cute.
He's a perfectly nice looking gentleman, but basically saying what I want is I want a blue-eyed, blonde-haired Israeli woman who speaks Hebrew. Okay,
And
that's
wants to live in LA, like not in
who
Israel.
wants to live in Los Angeles with me in my parents' house, and is also Moroccan, and is also my mother, actually. To Elisa's credit, she doesn't get the blue-eyed, blonde-haired thing immediately, but she sets Ori up with an incredibly beautiful woman who seems like she is very smart and very capable.
Yeah, she was too good for him.
And she like a truly gorgeous woman.
She was also very Israeli. She had that like Israeli woman attitude where she was like not putting up with his nonsense.
Yes.
I loved it. So Elisa gave a lot of like interesting snippets of like dating advice throughout the show. And I couldn't decide if I loved or hated how she like made them into these like cutesy little phrases and acronyms.
It was almost funny-ish, like with the way that Sadie describes like the little
yeah, I thought it was more like a trying to do a shtick for TV type, but yeah, I could see what you're saying.
Like the one that popped into my head was date him till you hate him.
Oh my God, I was just about to talk about that. I had it written down and starred.
Tell me what you think about this.
So what did you think of it?
So, for context, Elisa, the matchmaker, she has a bunch of phrases that she tells people, because basically how she does is she will get your criteria, and she will have, I guess, a Rolodex of people who are also looking for things all around the country or even out of the country as well. And she will find you somebody and be like, this person could be the right person for you, and then put you in contact.
And she kind of presents herself as, I'm not just a matchmaker, I'm a relationship coach. So she's constantly giving these like nuggets of wisdom out to the people looking for matches and the Netflix audience, whatever, that are like designed to be these cute, snippy things to, I assume, so you remember them.
Yes. And one of her phrases that she uses is date him till you hate him. Because, she's basically trying to say, well, if you meet somebody and right away it isn't just like absolute heat, absolute yes, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a failure. You know, sometimes you meet somebody and it's like a slow burn, and you have to really like you have to go until you make sure that you're like, oh, absolutely not. Rather than.
So what do you think of this, Gavi?
What do I think of this? On one hand, I am very much one of those people who's like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. You know what I'm saying?
Really? No, I don't know what you're saying.
You don't know that? You've never heard like.
No, that's a thing?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So it's basically like, if you're not really excited to go out with somebody, then at least for me personally, if I'm not really excited to go out with somebody, then I would just honestly rather not.
So I'm more like a rule of threes type person. Like, I feel like you should give somebody 3 dates. And obviously that doesn't apply if you get like fearing for your safety or like, I just completely hated this person. But if you had like a good enough time and like you had good conversation, you had fun, but like maybe they're not exactly what you're looking for, the chemistry is not there, you know, physically they're not really your type, I feel like you got to give it another 2 dates.
Okay, I think that's fair, because a lot of times
people are awkward at first.
People can be awkward at first, and I have to remember that like I'm a very outgoing person. I can walk up to almost anybody and say anything that I want to if I want to, and that's just kind of how my personality is, and not everyone's.
And I'm the complete opposite.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's interesting. But that was one of her phrases that she uses to. Who did she say that to?
I think she said it to Ori because he said, like, basically, he kept repeating, if there's no chemistry, like, I'm not going to go out with them again. Like, if I'm not attracted to them, I'm not going to go out with them again. And I think she was trying to be like, like maybe they're not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Mizrahi Israeli living in, the same city as you, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be something there. Give it another chance.
You know what I read that as when she said that to him? I read that as, dude, you live with your parents. I set you up with the most gorgeous woman that you have ever seen in your entire life. And you're like, I'm not sure there's really anything here. I'm not sure I'm really attracted to her. And she's just like, you're a idiot. You need to go out with her again. I did you a huge solid. I had to pull in a lot of favors to make this actually happen. You better not just say, no thanks after one date. That's how I read that one as.
I mean, well, I think that that's part of the problem with secular people using a matchmaker is most secular people, things like looks and chemistry is kind of what they're looking for. In the religious community, as much as I understand, it's a lot more about like your values, your goals, like personality, yes, attraction, yes, but there's way more that's playing into it. Because you could tell on this show, like a lot of times these people would meet somebody that wasn't physically their thing. And you can tell that they're like kind of trying to dance around and give these like, nonsense excuses and reasons why they're not interested in a second date when it was pretty obvious they just didn't want to sleep with them. A couple of the people even said that, like, I kind of want to tell Elisa I'm looking for someone who I want to sleep with, but, I can't really do that.
That was interesting. I think that the good counterpoint to somebody like Ori that we can talk about is somebody like Faye. So I want to.
She was great.
So Faye is living in New York City. She is or was at the time of filming. 29 years old. She's an entrepreneur. She founded a mental health app designed for the Orthodox Jewish community. She was looking for a match in the Orthodox community.
She said either as observant or more observant than she is.
And see, this was really interesting to me. Yeah, and so she ended up getting set up with Shia, who she ended up not continuing to go out with because they weren't at the same level of religious observance.
Which was too bad because they had a lot of chemistry.
I was like, that's a lot. They look like they're having a great time.
But at the same time, like, that's what I was just saying. Like, when you're religious, they're dating for something more than, just that spark. I actually thought it was really beautiful and mature how the two of them, like, sat down and had that conversation about where they were at, and each one of them was like very concerned with, I don't want to put expectations on my partner that I can't meet. Like, I don't want to, that they can't meet. I don't want to force them to live this lifestyle that's not for them. Like, this is great, but we're going to go our separate ways.
And there was also the scene in which Shia goes in to talk to his rabbi about this problem. And he says,
I loved that scene.
Yeah, it was really interesting because Shia goes into basically because the issue here is that Faye is more religiously observant than Shia. Like, she prays more than he does, and she's or more often than he does, and her general level of religious observance is higher than his.
He's kind of like the bad boy from yeshiva.
Yeah, of course, the bad boy from yeshiva for like everybody else listening to it, for like you or me, is just like, oh, that person's really observant. But for the Orthodox community, he's like if I'm trying to do the Fundy equivalent, he's like the Fundy equivalent is the guy who wears short sleeve button down shirts rather than long sleeve button down shirts, I think is the Fundy equivalent. Yeah. But she meets he's like, she is more religiously observant than I am. What do I do about this? And he goes to talk to his rabbi about it. And his rabbi is like, look, like a lot of times actually what we do is we encourage you to like date up as far as religious observance goes. And that was really interesting to me because the rabbi was like, if you think you could be at her level eventually, then I would encourage you to go forward with it. But I guess he didn't think that he would get to her level.
Well, he also said that he wanted somebody who was going to like appreciate him for where he's at now in case he never gets to that level. You know, he said like, of course I aspire to that, but like also that's just not who I am, and I don't want my wife to have to wait for me to become something. Which I actually found really beautiful.
And I think that's also a very mature decision. I do think it's very interesting because in a lot of shows, especially ones on Netflix, Orthodox Jews aren't necessarily always portrayed in the most positive way. And to be fair, there are a lot of issues in Orthodox Jewish community that are very similar to a lot of the issues that exist in Christian fundamentalism. Of course, those
varying by community,
varying
of course.
by community, varying by which Orthodox dynasty or which that's the right word, dynasty, right? Whether you're like Chabad or whether you're Satmar or whether you're one of these other ones.
What I really appreciated about this was that I think a lot of times these negative portrayals like make the women seem very oppressed and make it seem like it's a very patriarchal society. And I thought the conversation between Shia and his rabbi was very much like respecting the woman.
And that's not to say that that doesn't exist. That
yes, no, that's what I'm saying is that they
and that's not to say that that there isn't that there aren't absolutely situations where
there is sexism,
there is like legit patriarchy, and there is
misogyny,
abuse of women, that sort of thing. That absolutely very much does happen, and there have been a lot of recent exposés and a lot of people who have had that experience who are coming out and talking about it now, and I think that those people are very brave for doing so. And where there is actual abuse going on, that needs to be
talked
about and adequately brought to the light, and there has to be like justice as far as that goes. The one thing that I do think is that very often, I don't want to say all Orthodox Jews dress the same, because they don't. A lot of Orthodox Jews dress in a very similar fashion, and so you can't exactly tell who's part of one group and who's part of a different group just based on how somebody dresses. And so you wouldn't know the difference between one or the other, whether or not there's one.
I think the religious community would argue, but
right. But if you're just a secular person looking at that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because
yeah, absolutely. I was kidding.
You and I could see a guy wearing a strimal, or somebody wearing like a kippah, and somebody else wearing a strimal, and we would be like, oh, those two guys are wearing different hats. But like those guys would both be wearing like black coats and white shirts, and somebody else would look at them and say, oh, clearly those guys are.
Yeah, but the type of yarmulke tells a lot.
I mean, it does, and there's like all the signaling that goes on with that. No, but I do think that, like, I guess as this show goes, we do like to say that we support freedom of religion. And if it is your choice to live a more religiously conservative life, that is your choice. As long as that is your choice, we are supportive of that. And that's all I kind of wanted to say. But I do think that this was maybe a bit more positive than a lot of the things that we've seen, a lot of the media that we've seen covering Orthodox Jews lately.
Going back to Faye's scene, I wanted to go back to Eliza's quippy slogans. What did you think of the due date? Because that was the cringiest one for me.
Which one was that?
Do you remember
that?
No,
I don't remember this one.
So she talked about how important it was to discuss your due date, not due like a baby, but DEW, dating, engagement, wedding timeline. So how long are you going to date for? How long till you get engaged? How long will you be engaged for?
I mean, I guess if you're like, and this is very different because she is doing a match in the Orthodox community where they do tend to be like, okay, we've been going out for a month, let's get married. Great. 2 weeks from then they're married. Like, that's like a thing that's been known to happen. And you're like, okay, great, you're married now. Like,
but I think it's also important for secular people to discuss that. Do you not?
Oh, I agree with you fully. I definitely agree with you. Like, if you're going out with somebody and you're like, I absolutely want to have children, and they're like, I don't know if I do, and then but like my biological clock is ticking.
Oh yeah, that's a deal breaker.
That absolutely should be an issue that you talk about and that you discuss.
But what about like let's say you're a 30-year-old man, yes?
Yes.
I'm 30, we're 30. When you get into a new relationship now, is that something you talk about? Hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically speaking, and not because I am in a relatively new relationship. So I
know. Hypothetically speaking, unrelated to your current relationship.
I'm trying to think about how I can talk about this without, if I started going out with somebody, like, because this has also happened to me before, where I've gone out on a date with somebody and this person said, ideally, I would like to be married within 2 years. And I'm like,
yeah, that's a lot of pressure on like a first date.
Yeah, and or like even a second or a third date, they're like, ideally, I would like to be married within 2 years. And I'm like, cool.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it is a lot of pressure, because you can be like, it takes me more than 2 or 3 dates to decide whether or not I would feel like I'm wasting your time. Like, that's very much a situation for me where I'm just like, well, if you want to be married within 2 years and I can't give you an absolutely, you're the person who I think I would marry within like a month or two, then I'm going to be just like, I'm out, because
because you don't want to waste their time.
Yeah, because I don't want to be a jerk, and I don't want to like string them along. And shit.
It's so hard as you like get to be this age, 30, because a lot of women start fearing that they're not going to be able to have children. And so I think a lot of people start putting pressure on earlier as you're approaching 30.
No, that's true. Is that, I mean, 30 definitely seems like that's the mark where people are just like, okay, game on. Like, I had the 20s are over. Now it's time to get serious. Let's do this. Like,
so what are the things that you think should be talked about, like on a first date or within the first 3 dates, let's say?
Well, I think that one of the most important things is to understand that you share the same values, and these don't have to necessarily be religious values, but these have to be like for instance, I want to talk about somebody who was a joy to watch on this show. His name was Stuart, and he was in the later a few episodes, and I absolutely loved him. But one of the things that he talked about when he was talking to Eliza, he was describing the woman who he would want to marry and he would want to have children with. He was saying, I can't stand anyone who there's any level of racism or homophobia or any level of viewing people as lesser than you because they're different from you. I can't stand any of that.
And then didn't he say, like, unless they're hot or something?
Yeah, but that was clearly a joke.
No, I know. I found him very funny.
Stuart was, I feel like we suffered through the Ories in the first few episodes so that we can get to the Stuarts at the end of the episodes. No, but for me, I think that there is one, and this is kind of a theory that I have, and I'm going to posit this theory now and here, and this is kind of half-baked, is that I think that apart from like, what am I attracted to physically, like what genders of people am I attracted to, this, that, the other, like what age am I looking for, what level of commitment, there's another like aspect of this that I think is that I think is sometimes missing, and I think that Stuart is a good example of that, which is, are you a normie and do you want to date a normie?
All right, you're going to need to tell me what you mean by normie, because you texted me this a couple days ago.
No, I'm trying to think, how do I explain normie? I'm going to look up like okay, so for instance, Stuart, for example, went on he's 51 years old, and Eliza said he's a very sweet man, a very funny man, just totally off the wall humor wise, and Eliza first set him up with a woman, and she seemed like she was a very nice woman, but she was absolutely a normie.
It's interesting that was your takeaway from their meeting, because I see what you're saying now. Like, he was like way more quirky, and she was a little bit more like, I want to say Christian girl fall, but like obviously she's not Christian.
Yes, she had very much like, she showed up to the date like she was like they met at a restaurant or something, and she showed up to the date like she was like a teacher would like.
So where I was going to go with this was like, what I picked up way more from their date was that she just wasn't feeling it.
Yes.
Like, and I noticed that in a lot of the dates is like, you could tell when people were bored. And a lot of times, I mean, probably because it's reality TV, they were like, oh yeah, he seemed really nice. I would love to go out with him again or her again. But like, you could just tell they were so bored, which is fair. I mean, like, I'm in a relationship, but before that I was on, internet dating. And when you're out there going on dates, you sit through a lot of really just boring dates where you're not vibing with the person. So I was getting less normie, more just bored.
Because like the next woman that Stuart was set up with was this woman who was a comedian, and she was also I believe she was like she had Tourette's, and she was a disability rights activist.
So wait, here's my question for you. Is there a high rate of Tourette's in the Jewish community? Because I never heard that, but then this is the second reality TV Jew that has Tourette's that I've seen.
I don't know.
I'm referring to Lauren. Lauren, what was her name from 90 Day Fiancé?
Who hooked up with the soldier on Birthright and then actually got married.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Let me see. Let me look this up.
She had Tourette's. I just pulled up a study that said that it's not more prevalent, but
I mean, I guess this is just like two people that that's a small sample size.
But like, still, like, there's not that many reality TV shows featuring Jews, and so to have two Jews on reality TV with Tourette's, it's pretty significant. No,
two reality TV Jews on dating shows, nonetheless. I don't know. They started going, and she was like a stand-up comedian, and he was cracking jokes on. I'm like, there we go. Like, this is more like it. Like, I liked them a lot. Like, I'm trying to think of another example of this. Like, I the way that I would describe normie is like the opposite of weirdo, but like weirdo not in a bad way, weirdo in like a good way. Like you can
gotcha.
like normie and weirdo aren't like good or bad things. But it's like, are you a normie or are you a weirdo? And do you want to date other normies or do you want to date other weirdos? Like that's like the another level of orientation I feel like is lacking from a lot of stuff, and I think that was one of the issues. I did like Stuart a lot though. He was very funny. I mean, would you say that you're a normie or would you say that I wouldn't say that you're a normie.
Oh no, I'm very weird.
Yeah.
I was nominated for class weirdo in high school for my senior superlatives.
Yeah, see that's how we know that you're absolutely not a normie. You even have you're a runner-up in not being a normie, which is I think the normiest thing that they can do. You know who I did like was Harmony.
I loved Harmony. She was my favorite. She kind of reminded me of my sister, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Well, my sister's also like blonde and very into unicorns and sparkles. And but I found her very sweet. I found her to be really likable.
So Harmony is a 44-year-old woman. I mean, she looks great. She looks fantastic.
Oh, she was beautiful.
And I don't know if it's just like she lives in California and she cares a lot about the way that she looks, but she was just she looked very like she's 44-year-old. She did not look like she was 44 years old.
My favorite thing that she said was that she feels very powerful as a Jewish woman looking for love at 44. I was like, good for you.
She's an extremely charismatic person.
She was great.
She was a lot of fun to watch on camera, just to talk about stuff. But she's just like,
so something I really loved about her is Eliza told her that she has to date differently than what she has been dating in order to get what she wants.
And Harmony's like, no.
No. She seemed to take it to heart. She like really gave the guys a chance. I thought she seemed like genuine.
But then she broke like all her own rules. No, because one of the rules that Eliza was trying to, because Harmony.
Yes, the Shomer Nagia.
Harmony was like, she's a woman who's you can tell that she's very empowered. She's also very sexually empowered. She says this herself and she's just like, I need that like fire. She's just like, I need to see somebody and be just like, yes, let's go.
Then she at one point, referring to the date that she was set up on, he got more attractive as he was talking. So I felt like she really like embraced that idea of like, I'm going to try something different. Like, I'm going to give them a chance, even if they're not like physically my type to begin with. It didn't work out, but I felt that she was giving that a shot. No?
I think that was the one thing was that Elise was like, you should try not touching him for like 5 dates.
Yeah.
And she's like, no.
She immediately broke it.
She's just
Immediately.
like, no, I want to, like, as soon as he gets out of the car, she's just like, she gives him like a big hug and she's like, I'm Harmony. And she's like, there's that one out of the I did love Harmony though. She was the one thing that was a little bit odd to me. She goes into her bedroom and it's like full of like unicorns and sparkles and like pink and purple. And
I loved it.
I mean, it's fantastic, but it also like low key looks like a 13-year-old girl's room a little bit.
All right. So you're never invited to my house.
Is that what your room looks like? Is it like
I literally I have a stuffed cow sitting on my lap right now.
okay, but that's cute.
I mean, it wasn't here before, but my dog just stole it and ran into the room, and it's my cow. So.
Okay, but does your bedroom have like is it all just
there's quite a bit of stuffed animals and an American Girl doll and
okay, but is it like pink? But does it like look like it's like a bedazzled 13-year-old girl's room?
So it would be pink if my boyfriend would allow that, but no, it'd probably be yellow. But
I was talking to my girlfriend, and we were watching this, and she was like, the one thing about this to me that she said was she's just like, this woman's house is like this woman's bedroom. It looks like a 13-year-old girl's room, and I would not want to bring somebody back to that room if it looked like that because I think that would be weird, is what she said to me. And I'm like, fair point. But also the thing that I do appreciate about people like Harmony and people like Stuart as well is that, and people like Faye, is that they're like, this is who I am and I am not going to change who I am for somebody else.
They're unapologetically themselves.
And that was the thing that I thought was the most.
Oh, what was that girl? Nikisha. She was also very like unapologetically like, this is who I am. And like, I'm looking for someone who just like takes me like as I am. And I thought she was great.
Because her big thing was that she has a motorcycle.
Well, it wasn't just that. She's a Black Jew who's, like a larger woman. She's reformed, but like Judaism's very important to her. And she's like, I live in Kansas. Nobody knows what to do with a Jew of color. Like, I'm struggling.
Which, fair to her. That's a real struggle that I've talked to people who have dealt with that same issue. People who I am friends with, and they're like, it kind of sucks out here, like out in like the Midwest and stuff. And I liked her personally, but I could see a world in which people who are watching this show might not like her if maybe they were a bit more just like disliking towards fat people. In that, one of the things that she said was, she's like, if somebody's going to be fat in the relationship, it's going to be me. So I want a skinny boy. And I'm like, I respect it.
That didn't bother me because I was like, she knows what she wants. She knows who she is. Like, everyone has a preference. She's allowed to have a preference for a skinnier guy.
Absolutely. I did find her saying that to be much less like, it did not give me the ick factor that Ori saying, I want a blue-eyed blonde woman who is also my mother.
Well, because Ori was also kept saying that he wanted a supermodel, and she was like, I just want a guy who accepts me for being fat, but he's not fat. Like,
isn't that all that anybody wants? Is somebody that will accept us for who we are?
Yeah. I mean, she's like, this is who I am. I like how I look. I'm confident. I mean, she was gorgeous and she wanted somebody. Yeah.
And she says, I'm not going to change for somebody else, which is something that I do appreciate. Whereas the thing that I think more than anything else with Ori, the thing that kind of bothered me, one of the things that bothered me, among many things about him that bothered me, was that he had this general vibe of like, I know I'm a scumbag. And I'm not I know what I want and you know what I want, but I'm not going to say the quiet part out loud. is kind of a
Yeah.
lot of the vibe that I got from him. And he's just like, well, I wouldn't complain if she was this or that, but like, like and he was just very kind of like wishy-washy. And the other thing was he described the woman that he went on a date with, who was a very beautiful woman. She seemed very smart, very accomplished, bilingual, by all accounts a very intelligent person. And he like legit called her simple to her face.
I think you were more offended by that than I was, because you brought that up in a text also. And when I came to the scene, because I hadn't yet seen it when you texted me that, I took it more as he was like saying she's not like super complicated in that, like, she's not saying she wants one thing when she wants the other, like more like she's straightforward. But it did come across as like calling her dumb. But maybe that's also me just making excuses for,
every dude that you dated when you lived in Israel. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh man.
Baruch Hashem, I'm in a healthier relationship now. It's not with a Jew, but like, we'll take what we can get.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a dude who secretly wants to be dating his mother. So that's cool. Or
oh no.
Not so secretly wants to be dating his mother.
Hey, Sadie here. If this is your first time listening to the Leaving Eden podcast, make sure you go back and check out episode 57. It's a primer episode for new listeners. That episode tells my personal story and gives you all the terms and information that you'll need to know going forward. Also, check out our cult true crime series, The First Family of Fundamentalism, so that you can get the whole cult story. If you like our show, you can support us by joining our Patreon, where we have extended and uncensored episodes as well as other bonus content available. You can also join in the discussion in our Facebook group. That group is called Eden Exodus. Tell a friend, tell a family member, tell your worst enemy. The Leaving Eden podcast is a fully independent podcast, and we really appreciate your support. Now, back to the show.
There was a few other people on this that I don't know if I want to hit them. We didn't really talk about Danny Bergman. And I want to know what you thought about her, because she's living in Miami. She's from California, but she lives in Miami. She has excellent eyebrows.
Okay, so the best way to describe her is she rode in on a white horse to her bat mitzvah.
Yes.
She's just extra, like extra. She's a social media influencer whose whole page is pictures of her eyebrows in different locations, which, like, not just extra, but like she's kind of got that like not like silly thing about her, but like she probably sees herself as like the funny one in the group. And I'm not saying that like as a bad thing, but like, like she's not the person that I would be friends with, but I didn't dislike her.
No. Do you think that she bullied people in high school?
My impression of her was like, she wasn't the girl at Jew camp that was bullying me, but she was friends with the girls who were bullying me. Like never did anything to stop it, but like also wasn't in on it. You know what I'm saying?
That's so extremely specific. No, there's the reason why, like, there's a term for there's a specific.
Okay, we can say it. They can't unless they're Jews. So I think you should just say it.
I guess what she would be known as, she would be seen as like a Jewish American princess, is the stereotype that she kind of fits into. But I kind of love that for her. Almost like you had to have somebody in like that representation.
Yes. And that's something about this show is, I mean, we said this before, but they did like a really good job of like getting a very round picture of what a Jew is. There were a lot of different types of Jews on this show.
They had like the ex-yeshiva dude who lives in the mountains now.
Who went on a date with one of my sister's best friends, but that's all I'll say about that. At first, when he was first introduced, I was like, oh, he seems nice. And then like, as he was shown more, I was like, ooh, I could definitely see him being a huge.
I guess you lived in Colorado for a while.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, if you're from East Coast people, if they're jerks, then they'll just be jerks to you. And that's usually true. But once you get like west of like
the vibes I got more from him was that like there's something slimy about him, like, and also just the fact that he has a child living in Israel that he never sees. Like, how good of a guy can you be?
granted he was raised in yeshiva, and he went to he was raised in like very orthodox, and then he like left that.
Which is hard, but personally, I have had experiences, and I know a lot of other people who have had experiences with ex yeshiva guys who are just completely creepy and like really try to coerce you into sex like really early on. I don't know if it's that they have an idea that like all secular women are slutty, so they just think you're going to sleep with them, but like a lot of really aggressive behavior. I had to threaten to call the police on a guy once in Israel who was formerly religious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't really like him. He gave me weird vibes. And then the other guy named Noah. This one was the one that I thought was really funny. Is that Noah? He's the Israeli Italian Jew, living.
Oh, I couldn't stand him.
You didn't like him.
No, I didn't like him.
The thing about him was that I'm like, he's 24 and he's just like, I want to get married. Find me a woman. And I'm like, you are a nice looking young man and you live in Tel Aviv. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I kind of got the vibe that he more just wanted to be on TV than get married, because no 24-year-old guy living in Tel Aviv is trying to get married.
No, especially not one that like he's a very handsome young man.
Yeah,
he's a good looking young man. And then I do think that a lot of the men on this show really did not come across well. I think if we were ranking everybody, like the top tier is going to be like Stuart,
all the women,
and like Harmony, like Faye, and they like go up top.
Well, I liked the guy who went out with Faye a lot, Shia.
Yeah, I like Shia too.
Shia?
And
I liked him a lot.
If they do season 2, maybe they'll find, maybe Shia will be like a, you know how they do with these shows is they'll be like, you're on, but like I want to hold on to you so that
yes. Yeah.
I thought it was a very interesting lens through which you could and there was also there was Cindy who just like who was living in Israel, and then she got out of a series.
Oh yeah, she was interesting.
She was interesting because she was like, this dude was late and he doesn't respect my time, and I'm also like, you're living in Israel and you're mad that this dude is late.
Nobody is on time.
It was so funny. She's like, why are you 15 minutes late? And he's like, because the bus was late. And I'm just like,
no, he's the one who said that he took an old man's wallet to the police station, and she was like, yeah, right.
Also, it's just like, I mean, for me personally, I do appreciate when people are on time. Like if people keep bailing on, like somebody being 5, 10 or 15 minutes late isn't a big deal to me. But like if somebody like bails on me last minute a bunch and this and that, and they keep canceling plans, like for me, that's really annoying and I can't stand that.
I think it was one of those situations where it probably wouldn't have bothered her that much if she was more into the guy.
That's what I thought.
But I don't think she was that into it in the first place. So she was like more pissed off, because we've all been there, you know, like where a guy's late or girl's late, but then they show up and you're like super into it, so you let it go.
The thing I did think was funny, she's like, you're late. And I'm like, you are living in Israel. Like no one,
yeah, me too.
Nothing in that country has ever happened at the time that it was supposed to.
No. In fact, I used to always be early to everything, and then I moved to Israel, and now I'm often late. I just got in the habit.
It's just like time does not exist there. It's I mean, it's like being from Oregon, where like people come out to Oregon and they're like, why does everyone drive 5 miles an hour under the speed limit? And the answer is that it's
because they're all high.
Everyone's high.
At least that was the answer in Colorado.
And also there's nowhere that it's important for you enough to get there that you need to actually speed in order to get there. Like nothing that you're doing is so important that you actually need to go there quickly. But that's kind of the vibe for me. I don't know. I do think that this was a very fun show to watch. Do you have any sort of like final thoughts about the show before we kind of wrap up this bonus episode?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not too much of a dating show person in general, reality show person in general, but I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I guess for me it's just interesting to view a culture through dating customs, because so much of people, like when we talk about fundamentalism on this show, so much of what the fundamentalism is based off of is like get you married and get you a family, because the family is the center of everything and your marriage is the center of everything, and getting married and having kids is the entire purpose of your existence. And so it's very interesting, not saying that that's true with every culture, but that's also like, I mean, we're both Jewish, we both have had older members of our family being like, so when are you getting married, when are you going to have kids, to us when we were.
I think maybe because, as I said before, like I dated all these guys, so maybe it would have been more interesting for me had it been a group that I'm not a part of, or focusing more on the religious people, because I'm, more on the secular side of things. Because I see what you're saying. It is really interesting to view cultures through this lens. It just wasn't a different enough culture, I guess, for me.
It was very much just like, oh, I know that guy. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Like, I met that
it was like, but at the same time, I was like, oh, this reminds me of how terrible dating is. And wow, I am so blessed that I have found such an amazing partner, whatever his background is.
Yeah, I mean, it's either date the boyfriend, or you're going to be stuck with Ori for the rest of your life.
I mean, pretty much. No, I like to think I've learned a lot since then, but
no,
yeah.
I do think that like watching this show through the lens of like, I'm happy with where I am right now. It was very much just like, ooh, yikes, no thanks in a lot of these cases. And also I thought it was interesting. I don't think any of the couples that were matched up on the show are still together as of now.
No, I don't think so either.
And so like at the end of the last episode, when Elise is like, yeah, my job's really hard.
Yeah, but like, I mean, what do we expect? Like, it's basically like internet dating, except for with an additional step in between. Like you see that these people are giving her criteria, and whatever their criteria was, she was like, well, I know you said you want XYZ, but how about XYA? Like just one thing was really not aligned with what they were looking for. And obviously that's not going to automatically have a great outcome and lead to marriage.
Nikisha.
She specifically said she was looking within a certain age range, and then she gave her matches that were like 6 years older or something. Like,
because Nikisha is 25 and she was matching her up with men who were like
with like 38-year-olds,
36, 37, 38. And that's maybe like, and I know women who are in the age range of like mid to late 20s who are like, no, I would date a guy who's like 40. That's not an uncommon.
But a lot wouldn't. And so I think that has to be taken into account as like, yeah, it would be a lot more fun if you Google, are so-and-so still together? And they are. But at the end of the day, like, these are people's lives. They're looking for marriage, or, at least a serious relationship.
Nick, I will say the one thing that Nikisha did say that really like put me off of her, was she's just like, I don't want a bald guy. And I'm like, hey.
She did say that, and then she was matched with a bald guy, and she was like, oh, he's cute. So
Yeah.
like, I think she had an open mind. She also said that she wanted a guy who was fit, and I didn't pay that much attention, but neither of the guys looked like they were like, bodybuilders or gym guys, and she didn't seem to mind that either. So
I think that what she was doing was she was just like, this is like my dream list of ideals.
Yeah.
And well,
yeah.
if he meets like, I mean, and that I think is a fair thing to do, which is where you can have a list of criteria of what you're looking for. And you can like rank things being like, this is the most important to this is the least important. To her credit, she was actually willing to give dudes who absolutely 100% everything that she was looking for a chance. And she seemed like she was having a good time with those guys and she was happy with them.
Yeah, yeah, at least giving him a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, she had an open mind, which is all that anybody can really ask for, because you never know what you're going to get, which is nice.
I mean, my boyfriend was certainly is not my type. I say all the time, I don't know why I swiped right on you. Glad I did, but not my normal type.
Well, I mean, that kind of just says more about you than it does about him, because he's a nice man. He's a nice man, and he likes sports, which you don't like.
I hate sports. Well, that's what I'm saying. His profile was very much like I like sports, and that is just not me.
He's a nice dude, though. I haven't met him. But
he's super nice.
Me,
you'll meet him.
Like a good natured gentleman. No, the number of like Portland Trailblazers basketball games that I've made my girlfriend watch, while like games that they were actively trying to lose towards the end of the season so that they could get better lottery odds of the draft pick in the NBA draft, so they could get a better rookie player. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to talk about with this show before we kind of wrap it up. This is kind of a free form episode, and it's not really that. It's kind of a bonus episode because I just wanted to give
a little messy. We're sorry.
It's a little messy. I just wanted to give people some content to listen to before or after the or to come out before. We'll be back next week. Actually, something that I did want to talk about is that Liat has a podcast that is coming out soon. Your own show.
Thanks, Gavi.
I've actually listened.
We'll see.
I've actually listened to the first episode of this show because she got me to edit it. I'm doing the edits on this show, and I can say that it is very good. It's so it's. Do you want to give the whole?
What was your favorite thing about it, Gavi? Talk us up.
So yeah, I'll talk up their podcast. So it's Liat and her friend Moshe, who are both therapists, which is wonderful. We do love therapists. Liat is a sexologist. Moshe is also studying to be an Orthodox rabbi. So there is a very interesting and also very cool intersection between mental health and religion. And you have somebody like yourself who is very much on the secular side of things, and somebody like him who is very much on the religious side of things. And I do believe that personally, the best way to make good content is to put two people who have a similar interest but have very different backgrounds in a room together and have them talk about that interest. And so that's why I think this podcast is good.
Thank you.
It's called the We're New at This podcast, and it isn't out yet, but you can follow them on Instagram, right? Are you guys on Instagram?
Yeah. So we don't have any posts yet, but it's at We're New at This. So give us a follow, and we'll let you know when something's out. We're hoping to release an episode bi-weekly, at least for now, and then maybe we'll do more as if it picks up steam.
But it's going to start up. What you think about the fall sometime around then?
Yeah, within a few weeks, hopefully.
I mean, I listened to it. I thought it was great. Their first episode is on something called NoFap, which you are extremely online. If you're extremely online, as I am, you are familiar with what NoFap is. If you don't know what NoFap is, I'd highly suggest you either listen to it because you want to find out, or not listen to it because you're probably better off not knowing what that is. But it was a good episode. I really enjoyed it. And I want to thank you for coming on this show this week.
Thank you so much for having me. Anytime, I'll come in last minute, but...
Sadie's got some life developments that are excellent life developments that we were very happy about, very positive. But those life developments have been occupying a lot of her time and a lot of her brain power. And she really just needed to not make a podcast episode for like 2 weeks. So that's what we did.
Oh, she deserves a break.
She does deserve a break. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I can't wait we'll be back next week with part 2 of the Alberto Rivera thing, and then we're going to have our 3rd anniversary episode. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.
But old rolling river of time, you've healed me into no regrets, no confusion, there'll be no pollution. I'm so thankful I've decided to change my ways. I'm so thankful I decided to change